It is 6 o'clock. We will call the Helena City Commission June 17th meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
City Attorney Doctor.
Here.
City Manager Burton.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean.
Here.
Commissioner Logan.
Here.
Commissioner Reed.
Here.
Commissioner Shirtliff.
Here.
And for the record, Mayor Pro Tem Mayor Collins is excused this evening.
Thank you. Welcome and thank you for participating in the City of Helena City Commission meeting. We are pleased to be able to provide this alternative meeting format in the city's efforts to broaden public participation. Please be patient as we may experience technical difficulties during the meeting. We welcome your public commentary during the meeting. Please read the following tips and guidelines for the app usage and your participation that's displayed on the screen. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
The United States of America. One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. The minutes for the May 29th, 2024 budget work session meeting and the June 3rd, 2024 commission meeting have been submitted. Are there any changes to the minutes? Okay. Seeing none, the minutes will be received as submitted. Proclamations. Juneteenth is the oldest known U.S. celebration of the abolition of chattel slave system and the emancipation of enslaved African Americans in Texas. And whereas American President Abraham Lincoln made abolition a formal position of the U.S. government when he announced the Emancipation Proclamation, which declared that enslaved people in the United States or areas of rebellion against the United States would be free effective January 1st, 1863. And whereas, encouraged by the proclamation, large numbers of enslaved African Americans self-liberated, escaping the chattel slavery to seek refuge behind Union lines. And whereas, Confederate General-in-Chief Robert E. Lee surrendered to the commanding General Ulysses S. Grant of the U.S. Army after the Battle of Appomattox Courthouse in Virginia, effectively ending the Civil War. And whereas, on June 19th, 1865, U.S. Brigadier General Gordon Granger and his troops landed in Galveston, Texas, confirming the news that the Civil War had ended and that enslaved African Americans were now free. And whereas Juneteenth is a day to honor and reflect upon the struggle over the past 161 years following the Emancipation Proclamation to advance equality and justice for African Americans. And whereas Juneteenth is a day to honor and reflect on the significant ways that African Americans have enriched society through their steadfast commitment to promoting freedom and equality. And whereas celebrated on June 19th, it became an official national holiday known as Juneteenth National Independence Day by law on June 17th, 2021. And now therefore be it resolved that I, Emily Dean, Mayor Pro Tem of Helena, Montana, do hereby proclaim June 19th, 2024 as observance of Juneteenth National Independence Day 2024 throughout the city, and I urge all people of Helena to take cognizance of this event and participate fittingly in its observance. In witness whereof, I have hereto set my hand and cause a seal of the City of Helena, Montana, to be affixed the 17th day of June 2024. And I believe that we have our HR director here to accept the proclamation. And Dr. McMahon, maybe if you might talk a little bit about some of the events this week as well.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and commissioners. Wasn't prepared for this, but I will give you what I know. We're really excited to be a co-sponsor of many events that are going on throughout the city of Helena in celebration of Juneteenth. We'll kick it off tomorrow night, Wednesday night, at Alive at 5. I think the mayor will be there to support the activities that will be happening on Wednesday and Thursday. The Myrna Loy has many activities. They have a film. We will be sponsoring a barbecue on Thursday at the Station 1 Fire Station. And then we're really excited to be sponsoring specifically to our City of Helena employees a train tour that will celebrate and inform our employees about Black history and things that have happened in our own community over the last 150 years. I think there are a lot more things that are going on, but those are the things that have come to my mind right now. So,
Thank you. Okay, our next item is the consent agenda. We have 3 items on the consent agenda. A, approval of a resolution declaring various vehicles owned by the City of Helena to be surplus property and authorizing the city manager to dispose of that property. B, approval of a resolution designating the environmental certifying official for the purposes of the Helena Housing Authority's HUD's Section 18 Low-Income Public Housing Program disposition application for Stewart Homes and the related request for a tenant protect project-based vouchers. And C, consider a resolution to establish fees for the use of electric vehicle charging stations owned by the city and available for public use. Is there commission discussion? Okay, is there any public comment on the consent agenda? Madam Clerk?
Mayor Pro Tem, I have no comment online.
Okay, seeing no further discussion or public comment, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Commissioner Reed.
I move to approve consent agenda items A through C.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Shertliff.
Aye.
Commissioner Logan.
Aye.
Commissioner Reed.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean.
Aye.
The motion carries 4-0.
Okay, we will move on to agenda item 6A. Consider bid award for Benton Avenue turn lanes. Transportation Systems Director David Konopke.
Some of the background and intent of this project. So originally this project was designed with the shared use path that was built on the east side of Benton. It was envisioned as a corridor project as a whole, and this would be one piece of that corridor project. There's now 2 shared use paths along each side of Benton with no real protection for the pedestrians from vehicles leaving the roadway. So it was proposed to not only the city, but also to MDT, as that is an urban route, to install curb and gutter along both sides of the roadway. When we first went out, this was also the next that would tie into the Benton, the transfer station entrance redesign, along with MDT's crossing arm project for the railroad crossing, which would also add a pedestrian crossing on the east side of the railroad tracks. So this would tie that entire corridor, which now stops right before Batch Field, and continue through to the current sidewalk that is adjacent to Carroll College. One of the nice things that was going to come out of this current project, that it's still under design by MDT, but we're getting close to the finish line on that one, is there'll now be sidewalks designed across what is Rinker Precast now, so that there'll be a designated area for pedestrians to cross that wide driveway that is now currently dirt. It'll tie into the existing Centennial Trail crossing. And then ultimately, if the transfer station project gets built, there'll be a shorter crossing for pedestrians by walking a little bit down bent path and crossing at the narrowest point of that road, and then taking them on along Carroll College and to their other destination. So with those projects, those major projects being built, then we were going to come back with a mill and overlay in the area so that we could clean up the surface. And then once that mill and overlay was complete, come back and restripe it and basically clean up the striping, ensure that the lanes are configured the way we intended them to be, the bike lanes north of the tracks. And so all in all, you know, it was intended to be a corridor project, hopefully with, you know, initially it was viewed that we could get this done into, you know, a 3 to 5 year time frame. And then that corridor from Euclid down to Custer would be basically taken care of for the foreseeable future. As with a lot of projects, there's been delays in construction, the coordination with the transfer station, coordination with the BNSF and the crossing there. So we've had some delays. But one of the things that we were wanting to eliminate is drivers leaving the roadway to go around vehicles turning at those intersections into Sun Haven. And the biggest one that is the biggest offender at that is at Meadow. And you can see as I get into this presentation, you'll see the dirt is worn away. There's no vegetation there. And with the path project, a ADA ramp was built from the path to that crossing. And that ADA ramp is just sitting there in the middle, or not in the middle, but at the end of where people go around these vehicles to basically gain themselves a few seconds of instead of patiently waiting for the vehicles. So consideration, there was a serious injury accident in January 2024, 9 rear-end crashes at Oakwood over the last 10 years. Curbing provides a safety mitigation measure for pedestrians. So there's a small barrier between them and the pedestrians for errant vehicles. In 2020, it was bid and the total was $870,000. In 2024, because of some delays, the bid now totals about $1.2 million. Looking at the left turn warrants per AASHTO as a guide for this, and that left turn bay at Meadow there has 23 vehicles per hour, which exceeds the warrant requirement for a recommendation of a left turn. So just some, these are the pictures that we wanted to show. The biggest one is on the right there at Benton and Meadow. You can see where vehicles have left the roadway for a significant distance and travel around turning vehicles turning into the subdivision. This is just an overview of Oakwood, and that's where the current path terminates and cuts across over to the west side to where there is sidewalk to continue southbound pedestrian traffic, or northbound cuts across there and gets onto the new path. Here at Meadow, you can see the significant dirt there where vehicles dive off the pavement or one set of wheels on, and the drivers may not be to get around turning vehicles. This is a proposed typical section. 11-foot lanes is what we feel is adequate for that area. It helps narrowing that turn lane instead of your standard like 14-foot turn lane that you see. Narrowing those and narrowing the lanes does induce some traffic calming. The existing asphalt width is 30 feet. You know, at the end of the day, the proposed asphalt would be 33 to 35 feet in width. And then these are just project plans for the entire corridor. Because that project was a corridor specific, we had plans developed for the entire corridor on both sides. So, you have any questions? That's the that's what Meadow would look like if the bid award was awarded, where we have that pedestrian crossing would be protected by the curb, and it would have the accepting ramp that's already there, and there would be a area of transition to taper in and taper out the additional turn lane. And then everything stays pretty much the same as we continue down the corridor to where we tie in to the MDT's current curb and gutter on both sides of Benton. So the base bid was $296,000. We broke that down into the base bid, alternate 1, 2, and 3, and 4, based on continuity and need. So the base bid obviously was the biggest priority that we felt, and then continuing and finishing out the east side was alt 1, which came in at $228,000. Alt 2 at 103, which was that short section basically from the railroad tracks to Oakwood, and then $272,000 for alt 3 from Oakwood to Meadow, and then $323,000 for alt 4 from Meadow down to the existing curb and gutter. So, preferred, the way we would have liked to seen this project go was to get both sides of the project built with curb and gutter to protect both paths. But that would require an $800,000 budget adjustment from reserves in the FY23 budget, or 25 budget, excuse me. The minimum award that we're recommending is the base bid and additive alter number 1, which is currently in our budget, and we have the budget authority for, and that would be to finish the curb and gutter from where the MDT crossing project would start, end, however you want to look at it, down to Custer, where we would tie into existing. Some of the risk of not awarding this would be drivers would continue to drive on the right shoulder around left turning vehicles, continue in unsafe conditions. And with that path crossing right there, there's no protection there. We just don't feel comfortable leaving the pedestrians out in the middle of basically no man's land right now without some type of protection. Excuse me, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Comments or questions from commissioners? Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Director Knopke, excuse me. Looking at the project, and I tried to go through the documents, but it's a little hard to read some of them. It looks to me as if it might be possible to address the pedestrian safety concerns with just curbing instead of adding turn lanes. Is that accurate, that we could address the safety concerns through curbing, which would be significantly less expensive?
Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners, we could. That would develop queuing along Benton there, which is why people are going around, because as we've grown and Sunhaven is an attractive neighborhood to live in, people use Benton to access it, and those left turners would be there waiting for the vehicles coming southbound, and then any other northbound would have to just wait their turn. So yes, it could be done in a different alternative. But as I showed, that we do meet the criteria for installing a left-hand turn bay there as well.
Just a quick follow-up. Again, do you know roughly what the estimate would be to just do curbing to address pedestrian safety in that area, as opposed to the 524?
Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, I would venture to guess that it'd be somewhere less than $100,000, but don't take me to that because I don't have any numbers in front of me. But it would be significantly less than, as you had stated, the overall project.
And just Mayor Pro Tem, just a quick follow-up comment. I appreciate all, that this has taken a while and all the alternatives and the information. I do have concerns that this project is extremely expensive and, is noted in the packet, 12% higher than the estimates, and we only had one bid. It appears, again, based on the sort of hierarchy of needs, to be not as high a priority a project as many other ones, and the cost is extraordinarily high. So I would be inclined to look to address the immediate safety concerns for pedestrians here without necessarily doing the full project, given the really quite exorbitant costs. Thanks.
Other comments? Director Conley, I wonder, can you go back to the slide with the traffic data and what warrants and doesn't? Do you know when these were collected? And the only reason I'm asking is because I live right by there, and all through college, the house I lived in college was in Sun Haven. And I mean, people do just like go crazy around people when they're stopped there. One thing I've noticed is that it feels like it's gotten a lot worse since the trains have gotten longer and congested the paths more, so that you'll have people, queued up pretty far at both ends. And previously, people would be pretty good at stopping to let the folks take a left into Meadow. And now it feels like everyone is just like going as fast as they can after the train leaves. And so I'm curious about when these numbers were taken, and if we see any difference between the train traffic increase and the queuing we're seeing there.
Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners, I would assume this was done back in the original design time back in 2021-ish timeframe. Okay. I could be wrong. I can get back to you on that exact date, but I would agree with you that train traffic has been the trains have been getting longer. The queuing time has been exceeding what we used to see. I've sat at that crossing for 40 minutes with traffic queuing up all the way back to almost Custer, and the same in the other direction, I assume, by the flow of vehicles coming. The other time that I did notice that a large amount of vehicles was during this year's graduation ceremonies at Carroll College, where it actually took me over 40 minutes to get from Custer to Euclid. And there was people trying to make those turns into Sun Haven, and unfortunately behaviors of some of the drivers observed are not allowing. They're just pushing to get their extra car space forward or trying to get around. And there are some behavioral things that any design work does not or cannot mitigate, but I have observed what you had said, that there seems to be an increase. Not only that, there's been an increase in pedestrian traffic there. After the path is put in, we provided the 88 crossings at the Edgewood, Oakwood, and Meadow. So there have been a lot more pedestrian traffic crossing now that those paths are there.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Commissioner Logan.
Thank you. So, Director Konopky, we've talked about this project quite a bit, and I think it's had been budgeted for some time. Can you kind of explain the process to help me a little bit remember, but also those in the room and online as to how we got here? Maybe as much the financial budgeting pieces as other discussion.
Sure. Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners. So like originally we had talked about, we had always envisioned a wider pedestrian path along Benton. And that's when we had submitted for a TA grant to put that shared use path along the east side adjacent to the golf course. When we looked at alternatives of possibly widening the existing western shared use path, we opted to put the pedestrians on the east side farther away from traffic, as if we were to widen the existing path, we would just put the path closer to the roadway. And with the TA project and with the transfer station redesign to help flow traffic in and out of the transfer station and not build those backups across the railroad tracks and in the other direction, it kind of fit hand in hand to look at the bigger corridor. And so when we did, we identified the driver behavior of leaving the roadway to get around, basically just being impatient. And when we talked about this with MDT, our partner on the path project, they were excited because they'd always seen this as a safety issue on Benton. It was one of those, it's an urban route that has no curb and gutter or, pedestrian facilities on both sides. It's not unlike our other urban routes that are in the city, like Montana, that sections of that doesn't have curb and gutter or sidewalk. It's a very busy roadway, as is this one. And so we looked at it as an overall corridor project and felt that as we move forward through the steps of getting the path, the curb and gutter, the transfer station, restriping and getting that done. And then we would basically, once complete, that this corridor would just be very minimal maintenance and we could move forward with other corridors to try to improve over time.
Okay, thank you. One follow-up.
Commissioner Logan?
So in our discussion, the commission has, over time, has allowed for the funding of this project. Is that accurate to say?
Mayor Pro Tem Commissioner, yes. This was originally brought up in the FY19 or 20 budget year. And as we typically do, we line out our CIPs and show how the relationship of projects go with others. And so yes, over the years, this has been there. It's been talked about in conjunction with the transfer station entrance. It's been talked about with the Centennial Trail project. That's one of those added features that we're excited to get this corridor upgraded, because right now as many know, it's been a long process working with BNSF and MRL to get a easement to finish the trail from Centennial Park out to Joslyn, where we have asphalt 10-foot wide path. We recently met with BNSF after the merger, and they are requesting 30% plans to design the trail so that they can basically, give the concurrence that move forward with the permit. They're not doing easements anymore. So along with these improvements, there would also be the 30%, ultimately 100% plans, and then finding funding for the installation of the 10-foot wide path connecting with what's already there on the east side over and following some of the old railroad bed along Barney Park, along this south side of the railroad right away. With that permit comes with, some other opportunities, because once we get that permit, now we have legal right to be on that property, which then allows us to move forward with the money that was set aside by the commission in the past to evaluate the Henderson crossing. And once we do that and we can get that installed and connect the two sides, now we actually have a connected backbone of a path instead of intermittent blacktop with some dirt and then blacktop and then dirt. So Benton is, as anyone knows, is a vital artery through Helena. And it's our intent just to try to make it as safe as possible for pedestrians and bikers and vehicle drivers.
Thank you, Director, and thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Commissioner Shertliff?
Mayor Pro Tem, thank you very much. Director Konopke, I too live on that neck of the woods in that part of the town, and we've seen whether it's graduation we had a couple weeks ago, whether it's sporting events at Carroll, and with their new turf and all the events happening, we've seen the traffic backing up and queuing up, as you say, towards the railroad. You also see going further down the transfer station line. You see it down that road. Every weekend when I put my recycling in, you can see the road there. In terms of pedestrian safety, I know in the past it's been discussed about doing boulevards down the middle of Benton Avenue, or it's been proposed by our NEMTAC committee, the idea of doing boulevards, pedestrian islands, or crossings. Is there a way that, is that a part of this, or has there been any type of discussion as that being one of the alternatives to providing a pedestrian crossing?
Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners, the pedestrian crossings at the Sunhaven entrances would be your traditional three-legged intersections with the, there's a lot of distance between the shared use path now and what the back of curb or that would, from the top back of curb down would be graded away with embankment to smooth that out, but would provide those crossing opportunities. The major crossing, pedestrian crossing improvement would be up at the railroad tracks on the east side. We have one on the west, and in the proposed project, it's being designed to have a pedestrian crossing on the east side so that, during those large events, instead of people hopping the tracks like they do, we would have pedestrian corridors on both sides to help funnel those pedestrians to, like you said, sporting events, graduations, or whatever's going on in the area.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. We will go ahead and move to public comments. Are there any public comments on this topic?
Evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners. My name is Greg Worth. I reside at 501 State Street. I am the current chair of the Non-Motorized Travel Advisory Council, and I just want to note that MTAC, Non-Motorized Travel Advisory Council, and HTC has previously provided advisement to remove this project from the budget because we don't see this as a high priority. The issue with this is the widening of Benton Avenue. So right now you got two lanes of traffic like this. Widening it, you put the turn lane in, you get 3 lanes, essentially 3 lanes of traffic. And if these cars aren't going side by side, what ends up happening is you create that separation. These cars go faster. So you're putting 2 cars that are faster closer to where the pedestrians are. And you're actually creating the crossing distance. So instead of 2 11-foot lanes, now we're at 33 to 35 feet that a pedestrian must cross with higher speeds of traffic. So it becomes more dangerous for pedestrians. And we already know with the severe pedestrian collision, it's not good. It's not a desirable situation right now. And by adding a 3rd lane, it will make it more hazardous for pedestrians. Example is, you can try crossing it now. And if the speeds are now, if it's dangerous now, an example of what it's going to change to is similar to North Montana, north of town, where it has the 3 lanes of traffic. That's what it would be comparable to. So, and the whether that needs to queue or not, it's the same amount of traffic that is south of the railroad tracks, that's gone north of the railroad tracks, and the issues don't exist there. So why are we introducing mitigation measures on a problem that seems to exist in this location? I think the metric that was put up there, the warrant analysis, I would question that analysis because that's for highway engineering. AASHTO is for highway transportation officials. This is a completely different street. This is a city street. We don't want it to function as a highway, so there's different metrics to use. And we as a city need to decide, do we want to prioritize cars or do we want to prioritize people? My preference, I would like to see it have a safer crossing distance. I think there's other measures that could have been explored. Whether we just put curb at the 2 11-foot lanes to shorten the crossing distances and mitigate the errant vehicles, roundabouts are another solution. Stop conditions could be another solution that could be evaluated that wouldn't widen and make it less safe for pedestrians. And if this is an MDT corridor, urban corridor, and now we have a formation of MPO, I would suggest we defer this project to the MPO. Then we can get further participation in this project. I suspect that a lot of the cars that are going northbound, may not be city residents, and it would be fair, equitable to ask for their participation in this project. So with that, Non-Motorized Travel Advisory Council in the past, we don't see this as a priority, and especially if it's going to be at the expense of making pedestrian crossings less safe. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Worth. Any additional public comment?
Mayor Pro Tem, members of the commission, my name is Lucas Wallace. I'm a Helena resident, 643 Dearborn Avenue. I've lived on Dearborn Avenue for about 7 years, one block over from Benton. I'm also a member of the Non-Motorized Travel Advisory Council, MTAC. I'm here on behalf of myself as a citizen. One of the things I've heard here is question of priorities. My understanding of the city's budget last year was that the entire amount of money spent on non-motorized transportation, making the streets safer for kids going to school, was around $750,000. That included $100,000 for laser scanning the sidewalks. So essentially, this project of adding a turn lane at this point has ballooned to being almost as much as everything that we've spent on trying to make safer streets for pedestrians. And it goes to show you how costly some of this infrastructure is. And it's an ongoing cost. Every time you add more asphalt to a road like this, you've got to maintain that asphalt then forever. So I don't think this is a particularly good use of money, particularly if we don't have enough money in other areas to do some of the other stuff that I think should be a higher priority. In terms of the discussion about making continuing the trail across the railroad crossing. To be clear, that stuff is not included in this project or this budget. That's all something very much to look forward to. But when it's done, there is probably going to be more people crossing those crosswalks. It is a safe route to school to get over to the high school from the neighborhoods north of Last Chance Gulch. And it seems like the crosswalks are an afterthought here. And I don't really agree that it's going to be done with nothing more to do after this is done. I think you're going to have problems and conflicts at those crosswalks, and it hasn't really been considered. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners. My name is Diana Hammer, and I'm the HCC rep for tonight's meeting. And I just wanted to reiterate the comments of Mr. Worth that the HCC recommended in our budget recommendations for this upcoming fiscal year that this project not be funded and instead those funds be reallocated towards safe routes to schools and some of the projects identified in the downtown multimodal projects such as Cruz Avenue pedestrian crossing. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Madam Clerk, is there any comments online?
Mayor Pro Tem, I have no public comment online.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussions or questions from the commission? Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just had a quick follow-up for Director Knopke. In your last comments, you said that this project included crossings, but you were not talking about this project as funded in this bid award. You're talking about the longer term project, or is there investment in a pedestrian crossing in this specific piece that has been bid out?
Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioner Reed, so the crosswalks at Oakwood, Edgewood, and Meadow would be improved to have the curb and gutter like a traditional three-legged intersection. The bigger pedestrian crossing at the railroad tracks is funded through a TA grant that MDT is currently working on that the city secured. So what happened was we got the TA grant to go from Custer all the way to the existing Centennial Trail. Partially through that design, and that was one of the first ones where we got certified to be lag certified to do it ourselves. MDT approached us saying that they had a crossing arm project that was coming, but wouldn't coincide time-wise with the path project. So what the city and MDT did is we worked together to pull out the section for the crossing, which was Oakwood up to the existing Centennial Trail. That piece of that TA was removed, and MDT is working on that. We continued on the Benton Path up to Oakwood. So that major crossing is in that TA that the matching funds have been allocated through our budget.
Okay, just to make sure I understand. So the crossings are just the curb and gutter. It's not any sort of rapid flashing beacons or any improvements for the actual pedestrian crossing aside from curb and gutter. Is that correct?
Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners, we would put the required signage up, and as we do with any new intersection or signed crosswalk, there will be pavement markings on the ground with the yield to pedestrians. As with any of those intersections, we'll continue to monitor, and if we have issues with a driver behavior that they're not stopping or whatever, then that's when we can come back and look at our RFBs to mitigate that. But at this time, we would put in a traditional three-legged intersection.
Thank you, Commissioner Reed. One question I had, Director Konopke, this has already been included in, was it the FY23 budget?
Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, I'd have to look, but this was an FY 19-20, so it's been
Okay.
a carryover.
Okay, it's been carried over for close to 5 years.
It hasn't, it's not a additional project in last year's budget or in this year's budget.
Okay, and then I know there is a rapid flashing beacon farther down for the Fort Georgians kids that, well, and anyone, but they're the ones who use it most on Benton. Do we see that vehicles are responding to those stopping?
Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners, that one down at Edgewood, that's just a traditional flashing yellow light, which I see moderate compliance with.
Okay.
The intent of the Transportation Systems Department is to replace all those kind of just flashing yellows with rectangular rapid flash beacons that are pedestrian actuated, so that they're not just sitting there flashing all the time and drivers get used to them as kind of white noise. They'd be replaced with a push button so that when people needed to cross, you get all the blinky lights and then people would pay attention to them. And hopefully the compliance of stopping for pedestrians in a crosswalk or an intersection would increase at that location.
Okay, thank you. All right. If there's no further comments or questions, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I move to table the bid award for Benton Avenue turn lanes in order to give us the opportunity to look at the parts most relevant to pedestrian safety, including the curbs, but to not go forward with the project as currently bid.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any final comments or discussion?
Mayor Pro Tem,
Commissioner Logan?
a procedural question, I guess. So I don't believe I'll be supporting this tabling motion here. I'm assuming that if that tabling motion fails, one could put forward a motion to approve this. Is that correct?
Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioner Logan, yes, you can make another motion after the tabling motion if it does fail.
It's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Shertliff.
Aye.
Commissioner Logan.
Nay.
Commissioner Reed.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean.
Nay.
It is a tie vote. I would call on the parliamentarian, excuse me.
Mayor Pro Tem, the motion would pass as a tie vote. Is it fail? It's fail. Motion fails, yeah. Sorry, it was a motion to not pass it. So a motion to table would
So I would
fail.
ask the city attorney, since it's a tie vote and the motion fails, is there opportunity for a commissioner to make a motion to table to a soon to be a administrative meeting to discuss the potential options for this crossing? Rather than including it in the motion that it will only be 2 lanes. So Commissioner Reed's motion included the wording that it must be just the curb and gutter. Is there opportunity to have a subsequent a different motion to bring it to an admin meeting for us to flesh out this project more thoroughly?
Mayor Pro Tem, yes, thank you for clarifying. So your motion would be a different motion, still a tabling motion, but it'd be different in substance. And yes, that would be allowed.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'm sorry, I think, forgive me if my words weren't as articulate. My motion was to table it to allow us to consider options which could include, so not specifically stating it could only be curb. So my motion is to table to give us options.
Okay.
So do I need to re-articulate my original motion?
Well, your original motion failed.
Right, but I think that it failed because the proposal to do a new motion is to say that it gives us options, which was the intent of my original motion. So I think I possibly was misunderstood in how I phrased it, but I'm happy to let it fail and have it reintroduced. That's fine.
Mayor Pro Tem, just to clarify, I think if the alternate motion is different than the motion that was presented and failed, you can present another motion. Is that clear? Is
Yes.
that clear? Okay.
Is there another motion?
Mayor Pro Tem,
Commissioner Logan?
I would move to award the Benton Avenue Turn Lanes Project base bid and alternate number 1 to Helena Sand and Gravel in the amount of $524,655.
Is there a second? Seeing no second, with the motion fails. Is there a motion?
Mayor Pro Tem,
Commissioner Reed?
I move to table the, hold on glasses, bid award for Benton Avenue turn lanes and move the item to an administrative meeting for further discussion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Apologies, Mayor Pro Tem, I'm taking notes. Commissioner Sherliff,
Aye.
Commissioner Logan,
Nay.
Commissioner Reed,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean.
Aye.
The motion to table carries 3-1.
Great. Thank you. We will move on to commission proposals from the commissioners.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Commissioner Shertliff.
Thank you very much. We've received some comment lately, public comment on the 2 parking structures on Jackson Avenue, along with the stairwells. I was hoping to have Director Konopke might be able to provide some context, history, and some update on those parking structures. Thank you.
The medical arts, that one was closed winter. We had to make some research. Either being already signed or stairs redone. We're going to not just repair the damaged steps, we're going to rip out the entire staircase and then adjust those to the new stair height standard so that they're not kind of an odd height as they are now. As far as the stairs in the Jackson garage, those were closed November, December timeframe is what I was told, due to some water leaking down from the top deck, making those stairs slippery. So we closed them due to that safety hazard. But in that water freezing and going through the freeze thaw cycle has gotten into some cracks, has damaged the stairs to the point that it's not safe for the public. So that will also be another project that will be ongoing this summer.
Thank you. Any additional commissioner proposals? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the report of the city attorney.
Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, I don't have any report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Report of the city manager.
Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, I do not have anything to report this evening.
Thanks. We'll get back on track now. All right, we'll move on to the communications from the Helena Citizens Council.
Good evening again, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners. My name is Diana Hammer. I represent HCC District 1. I have two updates for you this evening. As a follow-up to the recommendations that we made on the budget, on May 20th, we had some questions about the updates recommended to the transfer station. So Public Works Deputy Director Coleman will be presenting and meeting with us next week at our meeting. So we look forward to learning more about that proposed project. And then secondly, also at next week's meeting, we'll be discussing the Planning Commission and land use process that's going on. And a number of us attended the meeting on June 5th, and we're really excited to be included in that process. It's an exciting time for our city. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the HCC? Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Right, we will move on to regular items. A, consider a resolution relating to the limited tax general obligation bond for the improvements to the vehicle maintenance shop, preliminarily authorizing the issuance and private negotiated sale of such bonds and authorizing the process for selecting a purchaser thereof. Finance Director Sheila Danielson.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Commission. At the last administrative meeting, this bond issue was presented to the commission by Andrew Kruzik, our controller, and also represented by Baker Tilly was Steve Scharf, our financial advisor. This particular bond is being presented to the commission for improvements out at the shop, in particular, replacement of the roof and the boiler out there. With the approval of this resolution, it sets the stage for our financial advisor to go out to the banks and solicit an RFP for the particular bond. If approved, then that happens tomorrow. They issue the term sheet on July 2nd. Selection of the bank will happen. July 24th, we'll bring a bond resolution to an administrative meeting to have that conversation. And then on the 29th, a resolution for adoption. That will then move us into closing the issue and closing on August 22nd with the receipt of the proceeds. I'm happy to answer any questions about this bond if you have any.
Questions or comments from the commission? Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, I will consider a motion.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Commissioner Logan.
I would move to approve a resolution relating to a limited tax general obligation bond for the improvements to the vehicle maintenance shop, preliminarily authorizing the issuance and private negotiated sale of such bond and authorizing the process for selecting a purchaser thereof.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final comments from the commission? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Shertliff.
Aye.
Commissioner Logan.
Aye.
Commissioner Reed.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean.
Aye.
The motion carries 4-0.
Okay, we will move on to item B, consider adoption of the 2024 strategic plan. We have our Public Information Officer, Jake Garson.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners. I will be presenting the strategic plan document for your consideration to adopt. I did want to give a brief summary of the process that got us to here, and then what the next steps might be should you approve adoption tonight. So in December of 2023, the city manager and city commission hosted a strategic planning retreat. It was facilitated by representatives from the local government center, from Montana State University, over the course of about a day and a half, and the strategic planning workshops. Really, the content for the document in front of you was generated. After conclusion of the retreat, staff was tasked with summarizing the discussions and the ideas that came from the planning retreat. We had a subcommittee from the city leadership team, various department directors, representation from the city manager's office and the city clerk, that brought forward at a administrative meeting in March a draft of the document that you're considering tonight. We are bringing this back for you to consider adopting now. Should you approve adoption, the city manager's intent, and he may want to speak more to this, would be to have departments then as next steps start developing implementation strategies, which would expand upon some of the strategies and actions that support the goals and the core values that you all identified. So those implementation strategies, as they're developed, will be brought in front of the commission for input and review and feedback and prioritization, and then ultimately approved as well. I'm open to any questions that you might have, as well as the city manager.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Garson. Any questions or comments from the commission? City manager, anything you want to add?
Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, I believe Jake covered it very well. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right. If there is no discussion from the commission, we'll entertain public comment. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Commissioner Shirtliff.
Thank you. I would move to adopt the 2024 strategic plan.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Shirtliff.
Aye.
Commissioner Logan.
Aye.
Commissioner Reed.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean.
Aye.
The motion carries 4-0.
Okay, we'll move on to item C. Consider a resolution creating the Parking Advisory Board as a City of Helena Advisory Board. Transportation Systems Director David Konopke.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners. This resolution is in response to the downtown businesses and the BID coming forward to the city requesting a board or committee to discuss parking issues. We believe, as in your packet, this has been kind of a recurring theme. It's gone from creating the parking commission to having a board and then to a parking commission running the parking. So the staff believes that this is a good step to have a board to where downtown businesses, citizens can bring their concerns to that committee or board, and then we can sit down and have really kind of focused discussions along with that board. So this board would also make recommendations as any board would on policy and potentially fees and this to the commission for your consideration on during the budget cycle. So we think that this only has advantages to it. The biggest disadvantage is there's a lot of comments, concerns about parking, and there's no central forum to kind of have the business side and the city side to take a look at it. So it's our recommendation this evening to approve the resolution creating the Parking Advisory Board as a City of Helena Advisory Board. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director Knopke. Any questions or comments? Yes, Commissioner Shertliff.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Director Knopke, thank you very much for bringing this forward and for working with the downtown businesses. Can you speak a little bit to the 5 voting members and then the 1 non-voting member that is involved in this?
Sure. Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners, so one of the voting members would be a representative from the BID board itself, the Downtown Improvement District Board itself. Then one representative that is a property owner, but not on the BID. So someone that owns obviously property within the BID, but not on the board. And then one downtown business representative, a citizen at large representative, and then one person who lives in a residential parking permit property. So that would be anybody living that gets a permit from City of Helena parking that lives and resides in the downtown. The non-voting member would be the representative from parking. So.
One quick follow-up,
Sure.
just for clarification, the citizen at large, could that be someone that say works downtown? Could that be?
Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, I think the intent was maybe a member from the outside looking in, but it's a citizen at large. So really anybody that submits an application for that position would be considered by the mayor and the commission.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions or comments for Director Knopke? All right, we will entertain public comment.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the committee. My name is Logan Smith. I am a resident here in Helena. And just a few thoughts that came to mind during this conversation. Businesses really feel passionate about the downtown parking. And one of the areas of recommendations that I would have is to make sure one of the non-motorized travel committee members to be a part of this committee. I think it's really important, especially as someone who lives off of 6th Avenue and works downtown, is how can we incentivize people who live so closely to the areas we live, work, and play to be able to access downtown in a better way. And to utilize the non-motorized travel board would be really impactful to do that. So that's one recommendation that I would love for you all to consider. And then also just when we're thinking about parking, of just thinking about it at large, parking is not just for cars, but for bicycles as well. Like I said, work downtown, bike downtown regularly, and there's one bike rack by the business that I work at. So just thinking about this holistically would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Sounds like we might have our first applicant for the board. Okay, seeing no other further comment, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Commissioner Shertliff.
I recommend approval of a resolution creating the Parking Advisory Board as the City of Helena Advisory Board.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final comments? Right. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Shertliff,
Aye.
Commissioner Logan,
Aye.
Commissioner Reed,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean.
Aye.
The motion carries 4-0.
Okay. We'll move on to item D. Consider an ordinance amending City of Helena ordinance number 3097 in the official zoning map for the City of Helena that changes zoning district from public lands and institutions PLI to R3 residential for the property legally described as all of lot 9 and north half of lots 10, 11, and 12 of the block 434 of Allen addition to the City of Helena, Lewis and Clark County, Montana. Actually, we have planner Kyle Holland.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners. Tonight I have for you consideration of the ordinance amending the City of Helena Ordinance 3097 in the official zoning map for the City of Helena. This property is generally located on the southeast side of the intersection of 10th Avenue in North Ewing Street. This is the location of the historic Temple Emmanuel. The current zoning designation is PLI, Public Lands and Institutions. The applicant is seeking a zone change to R3. The R3 zoning will align with the surrounding residential neighborhoods and will allow for limited commercial activity on the site with a conditional use permit. The PLI district provides for and applies only to public and quasi-public institutional uses in lands and recreational, educational, and public service activities. The R3 residential district provides for the development of a mixture of residential structures and compatible non-residential. And our growth policy designates this area as mixed use, places for people to work, live, play, and learn, and to have complementary commercial uses such as offices. Montana Code states the criteria and guidelines for zoning regulations. Zoning regulations must be made in accordance with a growth policy and designed to secure safety from fire and other dangers, promote public health, public safety, and general welfare, and facilitate the adequate provision of transportation, water, sewage, schools, parks, and other public requirements. In adoption of these regulations, the governing body shall consider reasonable provision of adequate light and air, the effect on motorized and non-motorized transportation, promotion of compatible urban growth, the character of the district and its peculiar suitability for particular uses, and conserving the value of buildings and encouraging the most appropriate use of land. As stated, the 2019 growth policy designates this area as mixed use, intended to include both residential and office uses. The current PLI zoning district restricts the type of uses found in mixed use and limits both residential and commercial activities. As stated, this will bring it into alignment with the surrounding zoning and give the property the same rights and restrictions as the surrounding properties. It's currently served by all City of Helena emergency services and utilities. Public lands and institutions are expected to generate higher levels of traffic than R3 uses. Our states put them at between 131 trips and 3,571 trips per 5 acres for PLI, with R3 uses being significantly lower as between 89 and 218 trips per 5 acres. Department reviews. Transportation had no objections with this, as they thought it would not substantially change traffic. Historic preservation had no comment, as there's no exterior alterations. Fire didn't have any particular comments on the zone change, only on future uses. Building, addressing, public works, and parks provided responses of no comment. The HCC and police did not provide comments. This aligns with the growth policy objectives. Goal 1, to promote and sustain Helena's economic vitality. Goal 9, to sustain the historic heart of downtown Helena. Goal 10, to plan for and establish types and quantities of land uses in Helena, supporting community needs in neighborhood centers. And with objectives 69 and 77, working to mitigate potential loss of historic, cultural, or aesthetically significant features, and to apply and revise zoning designations with consideration of the future land use and compatibility with surrounding land uses. As stated, this would align with the surrounding neighborhood and not give the property any unique rights or privileges. The zoning commission meeting was legally noticed in the independent record. Neighbor notices were sent at that time to all property owners within 150 feet. The notice sign was placed on the board at that time. The public hearing for this is proposed for July 22nd, and notices will be sent at that time. We have received no public comment. There was in-person public comment at the zoning commission meeting that was from neighbors in support of the change. At the May 14th meeting, the zoning commission moved to recommend approval 5-0. And so city staff would recommend a motion to recommend approval of an ordinance amending the City of Helena ordinance number 3097, the official zoning map for the City of Helena that changes the zoning district from public lands and institutions to R3 for the property legally described as all of Lot 9 in the north half of lots 10, 11, and 12 in block 434 of the Allen addition to the City of Helena, Lewis and Clark County, Montana. And are there any questions for city staff at this time?
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments from the commission? Okay, seeing none, is there any public comment on this item?
Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners. My name is Rebecca Stanfel. I'm the co-founder and the executive director of the Montana Jewish Project, an all-volunteer-led organization, including me, who reacquired historic Temple Emmanuel, which was an 1891 synagogue, the first built in the state of Montana and in a large swath of the Northwest. With the support of many, many people in Helena, individuals, churches, and businesses, our scrappy little startup nonprofit succeeded after incorporating as a 501c3 in April of 2021 to buy back historic Temple Emmanuel in August of 2022. I won't delve into the deep and rich history of Jewish life in Montana, but let's just say that this is a large building and the congregation, the Jewish congregation in Helena could no longer support it. So in 1935, they sold it, donated it really to the state of Montana for $1. Their only request that is that it would be used for a good and social purpose. And it was. The sanctuary that once seated 750 people was divided into offices and used as state offices for social welfare. In 1981, the state accepted the highest bidder, which was not the local Jewish community, and sold the building to the Helena Diocese. We were very grateful to work collaboratively with the bishop and so many people in Helena and reacquire this building and return it to Jewish ownership. Our hope is to use the building as it has been used since 1935, which is as office space. With our current designation of PLI, the only hope we would have as an organization which needs to operate on a budget is to operate a daycare center. And we feel that would gravely change the character of this neighborhood that we love on Church Row and with our neighbors who have supported us. Our goal is to rent out the main floor and the basement to professional tenants. We've had a great need, and I think the City of Helena needs, from therapists, but also we envision professional tenants like lawyers, accountants, and nonprofits. The Montana Jewish Project serves as a local and statewide Jewish community center. This is, we would not have this open to commercial use. We would have less occupants in the, using the building as tenants than the diocese had working there. What makes historic Temple Emmanuel, as Kyle talked about, and we're so grateful for the city's support in this process, is how it fits in with the neighborhood. Rezoning us allows us to maintain the character of this building, which is central to the identity of Helena and Montana. Our underlying value of Tikkun Olam, to help prepare the world, is also informed by, if I can bore you with one other Hebrew, Lador Vador, which is from generation to generation. And it is our hope to maintain this building as it is, as a historic landmark from generation to generation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Any additional public comment? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Commissioner Reed.
I move to recommend approval, or I move to approve an ordinance amending City of Helena ordinance number 3097 in the official zoning map for the City of Helena that changes the zoning district from public lands and institutions PLI to R3 residential for the property legally described as all of Lot 9 and the north half of lots 10, 11, and 12 in block 434 of the Allen addition to the City of Helena, Lewis and Clark County, Montana.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I might just provide one final comment. I think this has, I know, been a huge lift, and I'm really grateful to the Montana Jewish Project for getting, one, the building back, but two, I'm just excited to see all the work that you all will do. And I love following all the information already. So I think this will be a really neat next step for not just the Helena community, but Montana more broadly.
Thank you so much. And again, we're extremely grateful to the city for all of their assistance.
Thank you. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Shertliff,
Aye.
Commissioner Logan,
Aye.
Commissioner Weed,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean.
Aye.
The motion carries 4-0.
Okay, we will move on to the final item E in regular items. That is consider resolution repealing resolution number 19549 and dissolving the non-motorized travel advisory council. Commission Clerk Danae Claiborne.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners. As was stated, the item in front of you this evening is consideration of repealing resolution 19549 and thereby dissolving the City of Helena Non-Motorized Transportation Advisory Council. With your permission, Mayor Pro Tem, I do have a statement from Mayor Collins, who is overseas on behalf of the State Department this evening, and asked that his comments on this matter be read into the record.
Please.
To Helena City Commission and city staff. This evening, the commission will be considering a resolution to repeal resolution number 19549 and dissolve the Non-Motorized Transportation Advisory Council, or an MTAC. After serving the city for the past 6 years as mayor, I have sat through hours of discussions on the topic of non-motorized travel within the city. I have heard from an MTAC dozens of times in public meetings on issues concerning the walkability and biking access of our city streets. My gratitude goes out to those who have stepped up to serve on an MTAC as a volunteer board member since its creation in 2008. This past October, the City of Helena was designated by the governor as a metropolitan planning organization due to its ever-growing population and boundaries. Due to the increasing size, the needs of the community are changing. The issues facing Helena are not the same as they were 16 years ago, just as they will be different in another 16 years. As the mayor of this city, I fully support the dissolution of the Non-Motorized Travel Advisory Council. After careful consideration and evaluation, it's become apparent that the council's function and purpose, as described in the establishing resolution, no longer aligns with the evolving needs and priorities of our community. By dissolving this board and focusing our efforts on the advisory bodies associated with the MPO, we can redirect resources and efforts towards initiatives that will have more significant impact on promoting sustainable and inclusive transportation options for all residents. This multi-jurisdictional approach provides greater access to federal dollars through combined efforts and resources with our community partners. I believe the work done through the MPO is the visionary and forward-thinking approach our community needs to address non-motorized travel as one part of a whole. We remain committed to creating a vibrant and accessible city for pedestrians, cyclists, and other non-motorized travelers, and I believe that this decision will contribute to achieving that goal. I would encourage members of the community who feel strongly about non-motorized issues to participate in the public meetings of the MPO. Sincerely, Wilmot J. Collins, Mayor, City of Helena. So as I said, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners, the item in front of you this evening is, sorry, I'm grabbing my notes. The resolution to repeal resolution 19549 and dissolve the Non-Motorized Transportation Advisory Council, or an MTAC. So a brief history, an MTAC was created in 2008 in response to Chapter 6 of the Greater Helena Area Comprehensive Transportation Plan. Chapter 6 called for an advisory body to be established to help ensure the implementation of the long-range transportation plan. In October of 2023, the City of Helena, East Helena, and Lewis and Clark County, in cooperation with MDT, were designated as a Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MPO, by the governor. As part of the new designation, the city and its community partners will be required to update the long-range transportation plan and create the new supporting advisory bodies associated with the MPO, which are defined as part of the MPO's formation process. The City of Helena staff advocated for and received approval for a non-motorized specific voting seat on the Transportation Technical Advisory Committee, or TTAC. So I'm about to throw a lot of acronyms at you, and I apologize. The intent of this seat is to impact recommendations proposed by the TTAC from the non-motorized community perspective. These recommendations will be reviewed by the policy committee of the MPO, called the Transportation Policy Coordinating Committee. This policy committee consists of Mayor Collins, County Commissioner Hunthausen, and East Helena Mayor Harris. On May 29th, at the May 29th administrative meeting, the commission discussed the relevancy of NEMTAC given the city's new designation. Majority of the commission gave consensus to consider a resolution to repeal Resolution 195, thereby dissolving an MTAC. The repeal of the resolution can resolve a redundancy. It alleviates a potential for conflicting roles between two advisory boards working on the same issues. The larger, more comprehensive advisory body may provide a long-term planning for matters of non-motorized travel while taking into consideration all related matters from a multi-jurisdictional and multi-discipline committee perspective. With that, I'm happy to answer any procedural questions. I also have Director Konopke here to answer any specific questions on the MPO process by the commission.
Okay, great. Thank you, Madam Clerk. A question or comment from Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I think the question is for Director Konopke. It seems that the conversation has become an either-or conversation, and I'm still not sure I see it that way. And based on what I'm hearing about the MPO, which I appreciate has one seat for non-motorized, but it's my understanding that the MPO and the subcommittee would not be making recommendations on agenda items and specific projects that we have before us as a commission. Is that accurate?
Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners, the subcommittees that are formed under the TTAC or by the PCC can really be whatever they want. Now, typically, the PCC does not have jurisdiction over the individual entities to to dictate how budgets are spent or what have you. But other entities have focused subcommittees on mobility or non-motorized to make sure that those networks are combined and they're working together, not against each other, so that I think to provide consistency from transitioning from, say, the city of Helena to the county to the city of East Helena.
If I might, just a quick follow-up, but those subcommittees are still all three jurisdictions, correct? They have representatives from all three. It wouldn't just be like a City of Helena subcommittee?
There's no subcommittees yet. There's only the PCC and the TAC.
Yep.
And then it's once they have their first few meetings, it will be up to them to decide what subcommittees that they would want to move forward with.
Okay, if I might, just one more follow-up. The analogy that is coming to mind is, you have a dean of student life, and then you have like individual house masters who deal with the individual dorms and the people in the dorms. And I'm concerned that the MPO it's up here. And I, for one, have very much valued the recommendations and input from the non-motorized committee on specific agenda items before us. And I'm not getting the sense that the MPO is going to fill that same role that we have had in the past, which I personally rely on quite a bit. So based on what you have seen from MPOs and other examples, is it typical that they have some sort of subcommittee that does advise or make recommendations to a city commission on specific projects? Is that a typical thing that happens?
Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners, the TAC, which would have the subcommittees, would make recommendations to the PCC, which are made up of the individual entities. The plans that I have seen have an overarching policy. That's the policy and coordinating committee would be looking at those policies so that the policies would dictate what projects would be happen within the MPO. But I think ultimately that would be, the hope would be, since the entities involved are passing those policies, that they would also be adopted by the individual entities so that you would have that continuity of service.
Thanks.
Okay, other questions or comments?
Mayor Pro Tem.
Commissioner Shertliff.
Thank you, Director Knopke. Whether it's the Montana Land Use Planning Act or the MPO, have there been, I guess this also might be for the clerk as well, have there been other boards, advisory boards that have been affected, changed, consolidated as a part of these new changes?
Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioner Shertliff. Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. So what 382, and I don't think Commissioner Director Brink is on with us currently, but your example is similar in the sense that you do have a more comprehensive group or entity advisory body that will be consolidating 3 existing planning boards. I would say that there is some similarities in the process here, that you'll have a more comprehensive board versus this more singular entity advisory body that exists now. Recently, staff made a recommendation for you to consider or at least discuss consolidation of the TIF boards. I think I've spoken with some of you in our one-on-ones about how overall, as the board's manager for the city, what I do see is that the board system has crossover amongst all the advisory bodies, and that there are often opportunities for maybe a more holistic or a holistic view from some of these advisory bodies that could give you better information and better recommendations. So I think, to your point, that as city grows and some of the concerns and issues that face the commission and the city itself get more complex, then the entities that advise you should also grow and become more complex as well.
Other comments or questions? Commissioner Logan.
Mayor Pro Tem, thank you. So I think one of the key points of the discussion tonight is the nature of the municipal planning organization, and the fact that Helena has grown, and that our planning efforts need to grow with it. As I look to the authorizing resolution of an MTAC, it seems, if I understood correctly, it was passed in 2008, and it references a couple of I guess plans that are no longer in existence. The first is the Greater Helena Area Comprehensive Transportation Plan and the Neighborhood Transportation Program, and I guess that speaks a bit to the outdated nature that of the council and the resolution that authorized it, and the fact that we're moving toward a municipal or a metropolitan planning organization to deal with metropolitan issues. And I just think it's, I guess this is mostly a comment, but I just think it's an appropriate effort here, and just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you, Commissioner Logan. I did have one question for Director Knopke. I wonder, so one of the things that I think has come up pretty frequently, and I think is the only thing that's still included in the establishing resolution, is the Long Range Transportation Plan, or the LRTP. We had to dissolve the Transportation Coordinating Committee. That was the organization, I believe, that led the LRTP efforts. Now that the TCC has had to be dissolved, can you talk about what role the MPO has in developing the LRTP, which I know has been a point of, we've been budgeting for it, and it's imminent in the next year or so to get underway.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners. So now that the TCC is dissolved, the PCC steps in and the requirements of an NPO. So the authorizing the expenditure of funds for a plan would come from a recommendation from the TAC to the PCC. And then through that whole process, there would be interactions with both groups. Through the update of the LRTP, there are different sections that come into play. Some of those sections we added in the last time because we were so close to being designated as an MPO. So the revision won't be as large, but there are still some areas that will be enhanced. And, one of those chapters can be specifically to non-motorized transportation and how to deal with that, not only at the local level, but also at the regional level, because the LRTP, as it looks at the structure of your transportation system, it ultimately feeds down into the local roadways. And so those policies that are proposed or talked about or brainstormed during the update will directly affect the local, just because of the nature of having that continuity of service throughout the area.
Okay, and I guess that's prompted a couple more questions for me. So I guess the first, the City of Helena staff is the staff that are staffing the MPO. We are the entity that is leading the MPO. Is that accurate?
Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners, yes.
Okay, and then my second question, when the MPO goes forth with developing the LRTP, that's when there's opportunity to establish subcommittees in areas that it finds needs more input. So could that be like non-motorized, ADA accessibility, anything else?
So Mayor Pro Tem Commissioners, yes. Once we get going on the process of revising the LRTP, typically there's a ton of outreach to different stakeholder groups, and that reaches out to bike shops versus the BID to all these different groups. And that's where they start focusing on certain aspects. So they'll group those public outreach events into non-motorized accessibility and among other things. So there'll be some play back and forth between the two, because obviously if you have pedestrian facilities, that directly relates to accessibility and how do we move forward with providing a more accessible, walkable, bikeable community, and eliminating some of these issues that we have out there that may be a hindrance for all modes of transportation, and that's where those policies come up.
Okay, so one final question would be, should the proposed motion today pass to repeal the establishing resolution, staff would not consider that as the end of the road, but really the start of the new road in how the structure in which we are going to develop transportation systems in the community. Is that accurate?
Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners, yes.
Okay.
It's not like if this resolution passes tonight that I'm going to go and reallocate money to different areas. We're committed to all modes of transportation. We have to have that balancing act between everyone that uses the transportation network. Is our non-motorized infrastructure, the best in the state? No. Do we have some challenges ahead of us? Yes. But, those were identified partially in the last LRTP. Those have been ongoing issues as they get brought up in professional development through interactions with other plans. The downtown multimodal plan was done specifically to focus in downtown. The growth policy talks about linking connection and having that connectivity. We have the 5-point intersection study that was completed to look at how those interconnected roadways interact with one another. We have on the Last Chance and Lawrence, we just gave you the commission the update on how we can better make that walkable and better for everyone downtown. We did the the inventory that now the city knows what we have, where we have it, and what is compliant and non-compliant, so that we can make a roadmap for that. And the whole intent behind that inventory is to come up with a formulated CIP that we can project over a number of years for steps to move forward to improve that, so that our community is walkable, more accessible to the different modes of folks. So I would say that no, we're not going to be the end all be all, because we recognize there are like the RFBs, totally 100% behind RFBs, because they work better than a flashing yellow light or a marked or unmarked crosswalk because of different driver behavior. So I hope that answers your question.
Yep, thank you. Okay,
Mayor Pro Tem.
Commissioner Shirtliff.
Thank you. Director Konopke, I was reading through the resolution and it's other comment and then a question. The council will coordinate with the Lewis and Clark County on appropriate projects as well as other contiguous land management agencies. So it sounds like this resolution from 2008 kind of foresaw 16 years later the working within the county, not just inside the city. Do you expect that this non-motorized transportation individual will have kind of a larger seat at the table, maybe a louder voice if they participate in this TAC?
Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, I think that depends on the purpose that gets of the person that applies for that. But there's also the ADA coordinator for the city is on that, so that, you know, coupled with the non-motorized member, they can have that voice and advocate for those needs. And MPOs as a whole look at multimodal transportation. That's a guideline by the federal government. So it's not vehicle centric. It is looking at how to incorporate or separate the two, so that we're providing either a more efficient or safer model for depending on the mode of traffic.
Mayor Pro Tem, Director Konopke, you had mentioned the ADA individual that would be on the committee. Could you talk a little bit more about the other members or potential members?
Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, I don't have those committed to memory at this point.
Sorry about that.
But there are, there's representatives from the planning departments of the county, East Helena and Helena. There's the public works director from East Helena, the transportation from Helena, and then public works from the county. I'm missing about 7 or 8 of them because there's 13, but I'd be happy to speak more about those at an upcoming meeting if you would like.
Thank you.
Okay, additional, yep, Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just one last follow-up. I guess I continue to be concerned that we have an active group of our residents who focus on one very local issue, one piece of one very local issue, and everything I'm hearing is that those issues will be represented in a much larger organization that includes several jurisdictions. So looking at the recommendation, it's to alleviate potential for conflicting roles and redundant advisory board. Can you help me understand where is the redundancy from a very local focused non-motorized committee, and how that would be redundant with an MPO, which is multi-jurisdictional and multimodal, as you said?
I think, Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, I think where that statement is comes from is the fact that if a policy is made by the PCC that conflicts with a local policy, then you have that conflicting actions and how to incorporate between, say, a local road connecting into, a collector or what have you. So I don't think that the voice is gone if this proposal were to pass tonight. My office door is always open for comments, questions. I get emails on a number of issues. And again, if those issues in my mind need to be brought to the commission, I bring those ideas up. That's how the rewrite of 742 came about, because of the large number of sidewalk variances, but also a more streamlined approach so that we can address the concerns of citizens. And I would say to you that I would do the same if this were to pass and a significant issue or issues were brought to my desk, that I would bring those to a commission meeting to have discussions and obviously publicly notice it so that those folks could come and share their concerns along with my report.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Commissioner Logan.
Thank you, Director Konopky. So can you speak to the staffing of both of two? So you're going to have staff that is part of the MPO and then also staff if an MTAC is retained, meeting those needs.
Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners, if an MTAC was retained, then obviously we'd continue to staff it along with the staffing requirements of the MPO. It would probably constitute some comp time or overtime depending on how those meetings were to fall. But we would make it work so that we are giving that staff support to those entities that we need to be there for.
Okay. There's no further discussion from the commission. I will open it up to public comment.
Evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners. Again, my name is Greg Worth at 501 State Street. I am the current board chair or current chair of MTAC. I will say on behalf of MTAC, what we know as MTAC, there's been speculation of what's going to happen with MTAC. All that we know is that we know there has been applicants that have applied and have not been appointed to MTAC. If the commission desires for certain advisement from MTAC, we'd be happy to give it to you on whether MTAC should exist or not. We just have not been asked. So if you would want to table the motion tonight, we could certainly do that, at a publicly noticed meeting. Can't speak on behalf of the council until we talk about it, but I will say that, generally we have discussed the speculation. We have a desire to be effective. We've been fully engaged in our interests, been deliberate, thoughtful in our advisement. It's usually typically been resulting from public engagement through walk audits that have been hosted by the county. They're always very informative and we get diverse perspectives. I think, the early agenda item with Benton Avenue is a prime example why MTAC is still relevant and is not outdated. People care. MTAC members care. This, as we move into this MPO, my understanding, it is a separate entity. It's housed at the city, but it is a separate entity. And I know we have an MPO manager. Really the function of the MPO should be deferred to the MPO manager. The transportation service director and city employees, they have certain seats on the TAC, and that will be a diluted voice, in the broad functioning of how we talk about the metropolitan planning organization. They're not going to look at the details of school drop-off zones at Central School, the 15-mile-an-hour zones around Helena Middle School, the drop-off zone behind Helena Middle School. So personally, if you allow me to proceed, I'm not motivated by gratitude. I volunteer because I care. I'm motivated by providing safe routes to schools. The Centennial Trail completion, which would include the Henderson Street Bridge, sidewalks connecting our neighborhoods. So people can walk to essential services. So I'd ask that you deny the staff recommendation to dissolve MTAC. And further, I think we should ask the commission to develop a policy where staff is to be responsive and accountable to the advisory boards. This would be similar to the community development department that we just saw this evening, where the commission has provided information from the advisory board, so you can make a well-informed decision and see what other members of the public. So again, I enjoy being part of MTAC. I've really enjoyed the members, enjoy our discussions. So I would ask that you deny the motion to dissolve MTAC. Thank you.
Additional comments?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners. My name is Ben Kuiper, Chair of the HCC. I just wanted to note for the record that in our budget recommendations, we recommended against dissolving MTAC. We're concerned with the regional scope of the MPO, and we want to make sure that the local issues that are important to everyday life in Helena are preserved and given the attention that they're needed. So we would ask that you retain an MTAC. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, members of the commission, I'm Lucas Wallace. As I mentioned before, I am a member of an MTAC. I have been a member for, I believe, about 3 years. I'm here speaking on behalf of myself as a citizen because I don't think that non-motorized transportation is a niche interest. I'm not personally a bike rider. I walk to work often because it's easier to walk to work where I live than it would be to try to drive and park. But at the end of the day, everyone is a pedestrian at some point, even if they drive almost everywhere. You've got to walk from your car to wherever it is that you're ultimately going. And the decisions I think that we make as a city, the decisions that the MPO makes are going to affect our city for years to come. I think they're important decisions. It's easy to get it wrong. There are a lot of cities who have spent a lot of money on bike paths that nobody uses and paths to nowhere. There's a pattern that has happened to a lot of cities where non-motorized transportation is not a priority. And so parking and more lanes becomes a priority, which makes it harder for people to walk or bike to where they need to go, which requires more parking and more lanes, and eventually a downward spiral to where it's unpleasant to be downtown. You can't find parking, and businesses move out of town. They move to the neighboring county, and suddenly your tax base collapses, your future looks pretty dismal.
That's a time.
Mayor Pro Tem, can I have another minute?
You can finish up, please.
So, the bottom line is a vibrant downtown requires ability to walk downtown. There simply is not enough real estate to put enough parking lots downtown to have a vibrant, growing, thriving community. At the end of the day, non-motorized transportation for a city and for the city of Helena is, in the city's interest and in a way that it's not necessarily completely aligned with the MPO's interest. So I do think it's a mistake to get rid of MTAC, particularly at this juncture when we don't know what the future looks like with the MPO. There is no committee at this time in place to replace it. So, eventually at some point, if it does become redundant, certainly this could always be revisited, but at this point, there is plenty to do at the city level. There's plenty to do at the local level. And, you know, there's plenty more that, you know, we can, you know, engage volunteers at MTAC can assist with. I think it's a valuable resource that the city should value. And I think that at the end of the day, there's a responsibility for you know, the people who are on the streets of the city. There's no balancing between a kid on a bike and a drunk driver in a car. You know, the city needs to send the message, I think, that non-motorized transportation is a priority here.
Thank you, sir. And I'd just like to remind folks that our standard is normally 2-minute public comment period. So I'd just like you to try to stick to it if possible.
Mayor Pro Tem, members of the commission, Logan Smith again. So obviously transportation has been a really big topic this evening. And so hopefully it is seen that non-motorized transportation is a passion of so many of our community members. Whether it's safe routes to schools or commuters going downtown or to the Capitol complex, there is the need for strategic prioritization, not just a project here and a project there. And so one of the major concerns that I have as a citizen is that the one seat on the TTAC is going to minimize the expertise that NMTAC brings to the table. And so it'll further fall through the cracks. And I think it's really important for the transportation department to bring forward all non-motorized affected options for us to look at, as opposed to just this representation on the MPO. So I think that my concern is that it'll further deprioritize non-motorized transportation. And we want to make sure that we have a healthy community, we have a vibrant downtown and economic benefits for businesses and community connection. So I urge you to deny this.
Thank you.
Hi, Mayor Pro Tem and Commission. My name is Bob Jones. I live at 1039 North Warren, and I'm generally here as an observer for the League of Women Voters. I would like to be able to answer to my league leadership a question about citizen engagement and citizen voice in an MPO. And I understand what I'm hearing and I'm seeing is that we have an engaged group of citizens here in our democracy, and we're not relying upon representatives alone to make that those choices, those decisions. So I would like to, I guess I would suggest, not recommend, I don't want to go that far, but to maybe table this until we have an answer to that question. And then as citizen Bob Jones, I actually served for a short period on an MPO for a larger city and several counties around it. And my experience of MPOs was that they are places largely to attempt to adjudicate conflicts among differing entities, and that their success in those areas is very spotty. So one suggestion I would have, and it kind of goes with the idea of tabling, is that I think the National League of Cities probably has information about how effective MPOs are for accomplishing what. So I'd be very interested to see whether MPOs actually accomplish much. And I'm not hearing a lot of advocacy about that either from Director Knopke and staff or from the questions you guys are asking. So that's another question. But for the League of Women Voters question of, okay, what are the democratic opportunities here for our citizens if you do away with the MTAC, for example? What kinds of democratic opportunities are there in an MPO type of setting? So those are questions I would suggest and pose if you guys are interested in pursuing them further.
Thanks.
You. Mm-hmm.
Good evening once again. My name is Diana Hammer. I'm here representing myself. I live at 30 South Harrison. I am an HCC rep, and I have, in my role as an HCC rep, I've really appreciated the insights and the value that the non-motorized travel advisory committee has brought to the HCC to help us be better informed as HCC reps. I've really personally appreciated that. And as a mom, my kids walked to school, and for a while when Central School was closed, and we had we formed a walking school bus to get them safely from the Central School neighborhoods over to Central Link. And we see so many people biking. We have a very bike friendly, or a bike interested community, could certainly be more bike friendly. And we have a lot of pedestrians, a lot of bikers in our community. And HCC, I'll just mention that HCC's top priority that we all agreed on is safe routes to schools. And a more bikeable, walkable community was also a high priority. And so as an individual representative, that's also important to me. And so having an NTAC representative on a committee of a 13-member organization of the MPO, representing not only the city, but the county and East Helena, I think really dilutes the information that advisory board could provide you as the commission and us as city residents to better create a more walkable, bikeable community. So I'm worried about diluting that voice and not providing the information we need to make good decisions for our community. So with that, I would urge you at a minimum to table this recommendation to dissolve the NTAC and see how the MPO plays out, at least see how that's working, and ideally to retain the MTAC, because I do think they provide value advice and recommendations to you as a commission and us as a city. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Madam Clerk, is there any public comment? Oh, looks like we have one more in the room, and then we'll move to online.
Madam Pro Tem, Commissioners. My name is Ann Houserath, 911 9th Avenue. I'm curious about the timing of this resolution, because we currently have a functioning citizen volunteer committee. I haven't heard any criticism of their work, nor have I heard that we can declare victory and the job is done. As you know, as I said at the admin meeting, I served on the policy committee for an MPO in Boise. And my recommendation is that there will not be redundancy, that the MTAC will be needed. But I don't expect you to take the word of somebody who's just been here for 2 years. That isn't how a body should make decisions. I was in your position on the Boise City Council, and I always wanted to have data. And there were times when I couldn't have enough data to make a decision. But there is absolutely no hurry here. We're not asking you to do something radical. We're asking you to continue a committee that's been serving the city for 16 years. It doesn't cost very much money. If it's the staff time, let's work that one out. But right now, we have no idea, absolutely no idea how in the city of Helena, in this MPO, how it's going to work out. One representative, maybe there'll be more committees. But right now you have a group of people who are willing to help make the city more sustainable, safer. They work, they go to the doctors, they go to the dentist, they take their kids, they go to the library, all not using their cars. This is expertise that's free to us. So I urge you, table this, defer it, give it some time. It's costing you almost no money to keep this group here, and acting in haste, we could repent at leisure. Thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk, online comments, please.
Mayor Pro Tem, first up, I have Anna Metropoulos.
Please go ahead.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm on my partner's computer. My name is Corey Mitchell, and I find issue with dissolving MTAC as a professional. I find it irresponsible to disband this resolution due to impacts on public health. I work as an air quality specialist, and I think they do good work in mitigating strategies for downtown areas and helping keep criteria pollutants out of those downtown areas with these strategies like NOx or other volatile organic compounds that come from vehicle exhaust. And how that's going to play into the health mostly impacted by children in Helena and our community. And on a personal appeal, I just think that people, when they visit Helena, they talk about, the walking mall and those important areas where they're going to spend money and hopefully stimulate Helena's economy. People aren't talking about Custer and the time they spent there while they're in town. And that's all I have for you.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem, next I have John Andrew.
Mr. Andrew.
Mayor Pro Temp and City Commissioners, as a current Helena Citizens Council member and former MTAC member from 2017 to 2020, I know the professional work that this group does, and it's also an enormous voice for the city. I think tabling it might be an option, but I would really support the continuation of MTAC. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Andrew. Okay. If there's no further public comment, additional questions or comments from the commission? Okay, seeing none. I might just make a brief comment. I think that, I'll say one. I think we've kind of been on a twofold track that has been happening concurrently. One, we have been going through a pretty specifically focused update of our advisory committee bylaws and structures, because we were finding that we had systems that really were not providing the commission with actionable recommendations, or really the ability for us to respond in a way that we all voted was needed to be improved. And so that was happening concurrently. So regardless if NIMTAC went away or not, that resolution would have to be replaced with our new resolution with the new bylaws that ensured, every meeting is properly noticed, there's consistency among what's reported to the commission, a whole list of things that makes the structure more understandable to the public and actionable from the commission. The parallel track that has been happening is that we have grown to a size that we now have become a metropolitan planning organization, as qualified by the governor and the federal government. With that, and I think I don't want this to get lost in the conversation tonight, there are so many new opportunities that we will get to pursue because we are an MPO. One of those, an example that I actually was just thinking about, was that we had previously applied for a Safe Streets for All grant to make multimodal transportation on Custer better for our community. That grant was rejected and failed. One of the comments that we got back was that when your MPO is up and running, you have an MPO manager, reapply again with the additional data that we have collected from our LiDAR investments, where we now have an inventory of all the sidewalks in our community, the condition they're in, where there are gaps, truly tens of millions, well, actually close to hundreds of millions of dollars to actually repair that entire system, more than our entire budget for the city. However, because we now have an MPO and we have an MPO manager, we can apply again for this Safe Streets for All grant. That would ensure that we can pursue millions of dollars. Billings got, I think, $4 million for new sidewalks in our community. In previous conversations with the commission, there was a consensus that when we strategize about how we implement sidewalks, we will do it in a manner that prioritizes safe streets or safe routes to schools systems. And so we've been working really thoughtfully with the school district. We have quarterly meetings with the school district on a variety of topics, one of which is safe routes to schools. So I don't want any of that to get lost in this discussion. I will say that I think that we need a system for public comment that meets the needs of Helena in 2025, not 2005. We're undergoing a whole lot of changes in our community, and this is not just in transportation, but it's also in community development. So for example, we have had to move from our zoning commission and our city county planning board that I think all of the planning board members would have the same exact responses that we've heard tonight from NIMTEC members, something that they really enjoyed. They got a lot out of, they learned something new every time they went to a meeting. But because our community has changed and because our funding structures are changing, we have had to move to the Land Use Planning Act, which requires dissolving that board and moving to a new structure that fits the growth of our community. And so I will say that I don't want to lose sight of our commitment to multimodal and non-motorized transportation. I think it's why that we advocated to staff and staff advocated in the creation of the MPO that there is non-motorized transportation seat at the table and an ADA seat at the table. And why I think it's clear when the LRTP gets underway, subcommittees to provide this type of expertise in the development, the actual writing of the long-range transportation plan. And I would echo Mayor Collins when he says that by dissolving this board and focusing our efforts on advisory bodies associated with the MPO, we can redirect resources and efforts towards initiatives that will have a more significant impact on promoting sustainable and inclusive transportation options for all residents. Now, if for some reason, when we start writing the LRTP, we find that there are additional gaps, let's address those. But I want to make sure that we are able to move as efficiently and effectively as possible so that we can get this LRTP underway. We can have the MPO up and running so we can apply for the Safe Streets for All grant. I know our staff is probably just wants to hit their head against the wall every time I email and say, okay, can we apply for Safe Streets for All yet? And getting this MPO and the MPO manager is the first step in us being able to leverage these millions of dollars in federal funds to do that. So just some comments that I want to preface before we move to a motion and a vote, and really appreciate all of the public comment that we've all everyone has provided today, and the emails that we've received previously. And Commissioner Reed has a comment.
Sorry, thank you,
you're
Mayor
okay.
Pro Tem. Just a quick final comment. I think listening to the public comment and everything prior to that, I'm not sure it's an either or situation. And I don't see anything that prohibits the MPO from moving forward and allowing us to do that if the MTEC continues to exist. But most importantly, I do see a gap between today, if we dissolve the MTEC, and when these subcommittees form. And I think that is my greatest concern. And so I will be proposing something where with bylaw revision, which I appreciate the comments from Commissioner Dean, I think that is an important step where we do not dissolve today, but we consider dissolving if it appears as though it is in fact redundant down the road. But that space between today and when the MPO is up and functioning and ready to identify gaps seems to be longer than I am comfortable with. Thanks.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Commissioner Shirtless.
Thank you. I appreciate the passion, the commitment, and the work the non-motorized transportation advisory committee has provided the city over the last 16 years, from their walk audits to their championing of the safe routes to schools. I appreciate the comments and concerns said here tonight, specifically the need for local voices and participation. One of the comments tonight really reminded me of why or one of the things I said during my interview to get this spot right here on the commission was that it reminded me of my priorities was our people, our places, and our prosperity. You know, I support keeping NEMTech until we can understand what the new MPO will do and what its focus is and its priorities are in the new metropolitan planning area. I think we need to understand it first before we let go of one branch before grabbing another. I think is important for us to consider having that local voice of our people at the table to make sure we have people that remind us every day that we have to have safe routes to schools, because I've seen people try to cross Lindale, I've seen people try to cross Montana, and the people who remind us of that every single day is the NEMTech. I've participated in their meetings, but I think we need to take a longer look at what it's going to be before we say goodbye. Thank you.
Okay, seeing
Mayor Pro Tem.
Commissioner Logan.
Just another comment. I do think the recommended approval is consistent. Well, I appreciate the mayor's and the Mayor Pro Tem statements about, you know, where we are as a community, and the mayor, I'll just reread that passage that he wrote. But this past October, the City of Helena was designated by the governor as a metropolitan planning organization due to its ever-growing population and boundaries. Due to the increasing size, the needs of the community are changing, and the issues facing Helena are not the same as they were 16 years ago, just as they will be different in another 16 years. And I think clearly Helena has grown to the point where we have been designated as a metropolitan area, and we need to adapt as such. I think the idea of dissolving the an MTAC is consistent with the overall board review that we've undergone in the past couple of years. We would need to do it anyway. And I don't believe that the voice of the non-motorized community will be lost through this metropolitan planning organization. And so for those reasons, I'm supportive of the resolution.
Thank you. Seeing no further comments, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Commissioner Logan.
I would move to approve the resolution dissolving the Non-Motorized Transportation Advisory Council and repealing resolution number 19549 and any duties discharged to the council membership, staff, and commission shall be nullified.
Okay, seeing no second, the motion fails. Is there a motion on the table, or
Mayor Pro Tem.
Commissioner Reed?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I move to table the resolution dissolving the Non-Motorized Transportation Advisory Council and repealing resolution 19549. And any duties discharged to council membership, staff, and commission shall be nullified, and move the item to a future administrative meeting.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments? Okay, seeing none. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Shertliff.
Aye.
Commissioner Logan.
Aye.
Commissioner Reed.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean.
Aye.
Motion to table carries 4-0.
Okay. We will go ahead and move on to public hearings. We have public hearing item A. Consider a resolution granting a conditional use permit to allow residents multiple dwelling units in a R2 zoning district. Planner Kyle Holland.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners. Tonight, I have a conditional use permit for residence multiple dwelling units use at 1201 Wilder Avenue. This would be a resolution granting a conditional use permit to allow residents multiple dwelling use in an R2 zoning district for the property legally described as lots 15 and 16 in block 97 of the Ming addition to the City of Helena, Lewis and Clark County, Montana. This property is generally located on the southwest corner of Cleveland Street and Wilder Avenue. The current land use is residence single dwelling unit. The existing house will remain as is with the addition of a new duplex. The new duplex will be constructed on the north portion of the property. Sidewalks will be installed along the Cleveland Street frontage, and this project meets the district dimensional standards for the district. Multiple dwelling units residence is any building or property containing 3 or more dwelling units for occupancy by 3 or more groups of individuals. The R2 residential district provide for residential dwellings and very limited non-residential developments. And again, our growth policy designates this area as mixed use, places where people can work, live, play, and learn. Here's the proposed site plan. The existing house will remain as is. New off-street parking will be added off the alley to the west of the existing house. The new duplex will be constructed on the north side of the property. This will be a 2-story structure. Each unit will have a garage and off-street parking and a driveway with 1 shared curb cut. A new sidewalk and boulevard will be installed along Cleveland, and the lot coverage is 39.9%, which is just under the maximum of 40% for the zoning district. Here's the proposed elevations of the building. Here's the property as it sits now. The upper picture is standing generally in the intersection of Cleveland and Wilder, looking at the north portion of the property where the duplex will be constructed. The picture on the bottom is from the alleyway showing the existing house and where the off-street parking will be on the kind of left side of the existing house. The neighborhood around is generally early 1900s houses, most typically single story. There are a few 2-story houses, but they're limited in scale. There is 1 triplex in the 1300 block of Wilder, 1 block to the west. There are 3 duplexes in the 1100 block of Wilder, 1 block to the east. You can see the duplexes are all kind of typical of single dwelling units converted, and the triplex appears to have been built for that purpose, looking at building permits. Here is the plat. Conditional use permit review criteria. A conditional use permit may be granted by the City Commission only upon findings supported by substantial credible evidence in the record that the following standards are met. The proposed conditional use as conditioned will not adversely impact public health, safety, or general welfare, and the proposed conditional use as conditioned will not impact the peaceful use of existing property or improvements in the vicinity. In considering whether these standards are met, the following factors must be considered in determining the impacts of the proposed conditional use. Location, character, and natural features of the subject property as it currently exists, type and size of the proposed structure and improvements in the relative location on the subject property, historical uses, established use patterns, and recent changes to the neighborhood, conformity of the proposed use with a neighborhood plan if one has been adopted, current and proposed pedestrian, vehicular, and bicycle traffic, including ingress and egress, whether the use is consistent with the Helena Climate Change Action Plan, whether the proposal meets the zoning dimensional standards without the need for variance, hours of operation, noise, glare, odor, and express public opinion related to these factors. Any one factor may be sufficient to find adverse impacts and justify denial. Findings, as stated, the existing structure and many of the surrounding properties date to the early 1900s. The project supports the following goals and objectives of the growth policy. Goal 2, supporting housing that is safe, available, accessible, and affordable. It does that by objective 14, supporting the development of housing located in proximity to necessary services and quality of life assets. In goal 10, plan for and establish types and quantities of land uses in Helena supporting community needs. It does that by objective 78, encouraging infill development on vacant or underutilized land within the city. The proposed project will improve pedestrian traffic by installing sidewalk along Cleveland Street. The addition of 2 dwelling units is expected to add less than 20 vehicular trips per day to the area. And the residential use conforms with surrounding uses and impacts such as noise, odor, and hours of use by being another residential use. Department comments. Transportation stated that garages must be 20 feet back from the property line, and they do meet this requirement. All new and existing sidewalks, including ADA ramps, must meet current standards. Building and fire will review when it is submitted for permitting. Address stated that while this is advertised as 1201 Wilder, and that is the current address, because the duplex will face Cleveland, that will have to be addressed off of Cleveland. And because of that, it will change the Wilder address to Cleveland as well. Public Works provided no comment, and the HCC, the Police Department, and Parks Department did not provide reviews. Again, the Zoning Commission meeting was legally noticed in the independent record. Neighbor notices were sent to property owners within 150 feet on both April 26th for the Zoning Commission and on May 30th for this meeting. As of today, 5 comments in opposition, 1 comment in partial support, and 1 petition against the proposal have been received, and you have all of those in the packet. At the May 14th Zoning Commission meeting, the motion to recommend approval of the resolution failed on a 2-3 vote. And so for your consideration, a move to grant approval of a resolution granting a conditional use permit to allow a residence multiple dwelling units use in the R2 zoning district for the property legally described as lots 15 and 16 in block 97 of the Ming addition to the City of Helena, Lewis and Clark County, Montana. Are there any questions for city staff at this time?
Thank you, Planner Holland. Any questions or comments from the commission?
Sure.
Okay, Commissioner Logan.
Mr. Holland, can you talk a little bit about the zoning commission meeting and kind of how the discussion went?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners. At the Zoning Commission meeting, several neighbors came to also speak in opposition. There were concerns about parking, increases in traffic, and stormwater management specific were the 3 major topics that were discussed by people in the neighborhood. This Cleveland Street exists as a path from the school on the other side of Euclid there to the residential neighborhood. And so this is heavily traversed both by pedestrians and vehicles coming to and from that school. So there were concerns in the neighborhood about the addition of more traffic and more on-street parking, tightening up that road. As stated in the review criteria, public comment is one of the expressed items that can be considered for denial, and that is how the Zoning Commission chose to vote.
Any other comments?
Mayor Pro Tem.
Commissioner Shurtleff.
Thank you. Planner Holland, I got a quick question regarding, I know it's an R2. Does that allow for Airbnbs, short-term rentals?
Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners. Yes, the City of Helena doesn't have any restrictions on short-term rentals. So basically any dwelling within the city could be utilized for that.
Okay, quick follow-up. Do we know the intent of this housing? Is it for housing or is it for Airbnb, I guess, to clarify my first question?
I believe it is for housing. The applicant is here and they can speak to their rental model.
Any other comments? Commissioner Reed?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'm quickly going through the notes and perhaps it's in here, so forgive me if it is, but the issue of stormwater drainage, was that sufficiently addressed by Public Works? Or do we have any review on that?
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. No, we don't have anything specifically from Public Works from that. The concern was that this is kind of a heading towards a low spot, and drainage from the surrounding goes to specifically the north side of Cleveland, I believe is what was stated by the commenters. So there was concern about the additional impervious surface being created, just creating more runoff potential. But no, Public Works did not comment on this when they did their review and did not get further.
Just a quick follow-up. So my assumption is if Public Works did not make any comment that there is no identified concern about stormwater drainage. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Thank you.
I did have a question, Planner Holland. So from the public comments that I've read, and I'm sure we'll hear some of them tonight, it sounds like the biggest concern right now is parking and availability of parking. I know that there are a handful of vacant lots or older homes that have been raised in the neighborhood, and then a new duplex put up, a couple blocks from here. And one of the issues I think in the neighborhood frequently is boats, RVs, trailers on the street. Was there any thought about including a condition to prevent that type of usage of parking in the CUP?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners. I know that was not discussed as a condition.
Okay, thanks. Right, any other comments before we open it for public comment? Right, we'll entertain public comment.
Thank you.
So Mayor Pro Tem and Council, thank you. My name is BG Stumberg. I own the property at 1201 Wilder. I bought it about 5 years ago. The house was built in 1905, as I understand. It was in disrepair, and we did a pretty much of a major facelift on it. The previous owner put a roof on it. We painted the outside, put a deck on the outside, and then redid almost the entire inside, one way or the other, new flooring, new kitchen. Point being is I tried to fix it as a home for families. And that's been my niche as such. I do have a couple of Airbnb. Well, I have 4 Airbnbs in town that we use. We're dissolving those right now because the Airbnb market is not really viable any longer in terms of just long-term rents in which you can get. This is going to be built as a family home. It's a 2.5 bath, 3-bedroom home on each side with the intent of renting to families. There was comments in the earlier deal about college students. That's not my niche. I have rented to college students in the past and have decided not to do that in the future. So I haven't rented to them like in 10 years. So that's just not where I've gone. If you don't mind, I kept some notes from the previous thing. There were some comments about curbs, and we'll be fixing the curbs there. I actually built a duplex at 611 Wilder. And we had to redo all the curbs there and the sidewalks. And we would do that if we have to here. There's already a cut in the curb for ADA and a pass through onto Cleveland. There were some comments in the previous meeting about the loss of value of the home. And to date, I've built 2 different duplexes, one at 1310 Poplar and one at 611 Wilder. Both instances, you can go back and look at the tax records, has lifted the value of the properties, and I'm assuming the value of the adjoining properties as well. So that would probably be a plus for everybody long term. Initially, it'd be, you got to go through the building process. It'd probably take about 8 months to do this. Oh, the drainage issue. If I don't know how to pull this back up, but if you look at the curve or the diagram that he had the pipes going out to a drain on the far side of Wilder. There, yes, on this one, if y'all could look at that, yeah. There's a 4-inch pipe. That's a sewer pipe going out to the sewer main, and don't know if we can do this or not, but my thought is that we would, I gutter all my houses. So we would gutter it and then have the drains go down into that for excessive, drain water off the roof, which will alleviate a whole lot of that. I don't know if we can do that. There's also on the corner there, at the corner of Wilder and Cleveland, if I'm not mistaken, there's a drain there. It goes down into the city drain area there. There was some discussion about yard, and there won't be a whole lot of yard, but there'll be plenty of yard for children who have imagination. And I have my grandkids with me right now, and they can think of a million different ways to play. So I'm not real concerned about that. The off-street parking on the left of the existing house is not there presently. It's fenced across the alleyway. And what I would do is just cut the fence off at an angle so that you can come in and park there. And there's not much of a drop there. I think it's about 18 inches. And we would just pave that so that the existing house would have parking off street. They now park on the street. So if I could entertain any questions.
We'll keep going with public comment, and then if the commission has additional questions, we'll come back.
Okay.
Great. Thank you,
very
sir.
much.
Good evening, commissioners and Mayor Pro Tem. I have a map here. Can I pass?
You can give it to the clerk and she'll pass them out. Thank you, ma'am.
And what you're looking is a satellite map of the 1 block between Euclid and Wilder Avenue of Cleveland. The red arrows show existing east-west access onto Cleveland from the town pump, White Knight, and the alley, which is used by home beautifiers and the trucks that deliver to town pump. The yellow highlighted areas are on-street parking used by delivery trucks for town pump. And when the White Knight has their events, that area is used for parking, which basically narrows the road to 1 lane. We get north-south traffic coming off of Euclid and from the neighborhood coming up toward Euclid. And it's a safety issue. A lot of times when we're trying to get home, we have to stop and wait in the intersection for traffic to come out of those areas so that we can go north on Euclid Avenue or on Cleveland Street.
Also during the school hours, when people are trying to get their kids to C.R. Anderson School, that traffic is backed up for blocks. So that shows the congestion there. The proposed driveways would have at least 4 more cars coming in and out of that area on the north side of that block. A lot of the neighborhood comes to Cleveland and comes up toward the stoplight so that they can get onto Euclid to get to work faster. There's already been one rollover accident on the corner of Cleveland and Wilder. So we know that there's an issue there. And there really hasn't been a whole lot of discussion of what's going to happen to our property values or our property taxes if this goes through. We're on a fixed income. Our neighbors are on a fixed income. And so, this is a big concern for us. So we would like you to vote against this. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, could I please ask you to state your name for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Connie House, and I live at 1217 Wilder Avenue.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners, my name is Barbara Belt, and my husband and I own the property that is adjacent to the 1201 property. We share a fence between the two properties. So I think one thing that was left out of the discussion by the property owner that wants this high density built is Cleveland is a very busy street already. And particularly during the school year, there are lots of kids that walk up to the C.R. Anderson Middle School, and they're old enough to go by themselves. They don't have adults watching out for them. There's lots of traffic during the morning rush hour going to the C.R. Anderson School and also going into town and to the state office buildings. So it is a very busy block, that particular block. The businesses, our block shares, half of it is residential and the south half is commercial. And the commercial businesses are very successful. On the corner of Cleveland and Euclid is a gas station, which has a casino and a mini mart. And so often there are pedestrians walking up Cleveland to go to the mini mart or the casino, and they park for a time there. And the gaming on the other side of Cleveland, when they have their event nights, they park on Cleveland and there's 1-lane traffic basically going up to the light. The other issue, I think, besides safety for children, is the runoff. The water cascades all the way from La Grande Canyon, which is a very steep going south from the base of Mount Helena, all the way down Cleveland, crossing Euclid, and it pools on the other side of Wilder, on the downside of Wilder. And the neighbors across the street from us often have very deep parking areas, and so they have to park elsewhere. The neighbors on the other side of Cleveland and Wilder, the city actually built a retaining wall so the cascading water would not go into their yard and their basement egress windows. So we also have egress windows. This new build takes up 40% of the property, as the owner stated, but there's also patios, driveways, sidewalks, and this parking space between the existing house and our existing garage studio. And so all of that runoff, we have egress windows on that side of our building too, and all that runoff may impact our property. So those are the things I worry about when I think about this new build in this particular block. I don't think the traffic on Cleveland was considered when they made this plan. And 4 to 6 more cars, where are they going to park? They could use the driveways, but kids are walking during rush hour, and cars backing out of driveways present a safety standard. So anyway, I urge you to vote no on this proposal in this particular block. Thank you.
ma'am. Okay. Madam Clerk, any additional public comment?
Mayor Pro Tem, I have no public comment online.
Okay, great. Any additional comments or questions from the commission? I did have one question, and don't know if this is for Planner Holland or Deputy Director Coleman, but I'm wondering on the water issues or potential issues, drainage issues. Should this CUP get approved, when they go to submit building permits and the rest, do additional steps occur to review these type of drainage issues?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners. Yes, during the building permit review process, Public Works would get a review. I'm obviously not the stormwater expert here, but my understanding is that stormwater created on the property has to be maintained within the property is the city code standard.
Okay. And then that's helpful. And then is there availability to include a condition to not allow trailers, boats, accessory vehicles? I know that we don't allow them in the winter time. So I think it's like October 1 to April 1st or something, but is there the availability for us to create a condition that they cannot park those with this unit?
Mayor Pro Tem, your findings are, as Planner Holland put up on the board, and you might have before you, have to be substantial, credible evidence found that the following standards are met. And so as conditioned, the proposal cannot adversely impact the public health, safety, or welfare. And then the second finding is that it will not adversely impact or impair the peaceful use of existing property or improvements in the vicinity in the zoning district. And so any conditions that you would propose would have to be linked back to those two standards. And so if you can find through substantial credible evidence that it's supported, you can create a condition to ensure that those are met. That doesn't directly answer your question, but I think that a proposal for parking on the streets, what you have heard is some concerns about parking from existing property owners in the area. And if that met substantial credible evidence, it would be an allowable condition.
Okay. And I guess a follow-up question then for the city attorney. Would you recommend that I think that there is enough concern, and given the traffic patterns of the area, a lot of uncontrolled intersections, I think there's an argument to be made about impact to the public safety and general welfare of the area, with additional congestion of parking. And so I guess, is that something that we could request that the community development department maybe develop language to address, or is that something you'd prefer we happen now at a commission level?
Mayor Pro Tem, I think if you want, there's a question about enforceability in the first place. And so you put a condition on a conditional use permit and it creates an enforceability issue. That being said, I do think that if you want it enforced,
the way to ensure that it's enforced is to include it as a condition on the conditional use permit. And that would be the best way to ensure that. I do think it creates an enforcement issue and could actually, the violation of which could actually put their conditional use permit in jeopardy as being non-conforming. So that's just a reality of any conditions on a conditional use permit.
Okay, thanks. I guess I defer to the city attorney, or can we open back up for the
Mayor Pro Tem, the public comments have been concluded.
I guess what I might do is I'll refer my question to the applicant. You, sir, are the applicant, and so you can address my question.
I have a very extensive, almost 20 pages of a lease. And in that, we don't allow junk vehicles or anything like that. We can put into the lease that they can't park on the street. That's no problem. And we also can put in the lease, no boats, no trailers or whatever. Plenty of people use storage facilities for those kind of things. So that's not an issue, at least in my mind.
Okay.
We could also put on the lease that they can park on the Wilder side if they park out on the street as opposed to the Cleveland side. That's all directive in terms of me being the landlord and them being a part of or using the duplex. And then the issue with the water, I don't want to flood anybody. So at our expense, we would dig a French drain between the two houses and empty it out down towards the street somewhere. It'd have to empty down there one way or the other. I don't know exactly how the lot slants towards Wilder. So that wouldn't be a problem, particularly in the construction phase.
Okay.
To put that in. So if I can answer any other questions.
Any other comments from the commission?
Mayor Pro Tem, I've got a question for Planner Holland.
Planner Holland.
Thank you. Looking at the site plan and looking at the house along with the patio, does the patio give enough room between the property line and the patio itself? Is there enough room there by city code?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners. Patios are allowed within the setback, decks are not. We make a distinction between patios and decks because of the elevation off of the ground level, that the deck or anything else that is above grade is not allowed in the setbacks, but patios and driveways, because they're flush, are allowed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other comments, I will note I am chairing, so I cannot make a motion or a motion to amend. And so I would urge my colleagues to maybe consider some thoughts about adding a condition about any additional vehicles or boats, trailers, etc., parking on the street.
Mayor Pro Tem, could I ask one last question with regard to that?
Sure.
What is our ability to influence or address or condition parking on the street, if any?
Mayor Pro Tem, I would just refer, Commissioner Reed. I think you're asking because it's off the property itself, and so the conditional use permit would be because it's a city right of way that abuts and I'm assuming it is, Cleveland is the one you're talking about, city right of way. And the existing use and the impacts it could have on public health, safety, and welfare. And I'm just going to the two standards in the statute Number one is public health, safety, or welfare, and then adversely impact the peaceful use of existing property. You would be allowed to grant a conditional use permit based upon the actions of the use inside that conditional use permit. So you're not actually saying, I mean, you're basically saying they can't use the right of way, which is a city property.
Just a quick follow-up, because if the condition is that way and somebody down the street parks their RV on that street, would we have a problem with the conditional use permit?
Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioner Reed, no, that is the exact enforcement issue that I raised, that, you know, city staff would take a complaint on and have to look into it and then see if it violates a conditional use permit, but it should not be someone else's RV parked in front of that space that would jeopardize a conditional use permit.
And sorry, just one last follow-up, forgive me for being pedantic, but if they were found to be in violation of their conditional use permit because of parking of an RV in front of their home, what is the implication of that for the permit on a house that's been built?
Then it becomes non-conforming, and I would defer to Planner Holland if indeed you want to know what the process is for what happens with non-conforming. I might remind you that we've had several conditional use permits in non-conforming conditions. And sometimes we change the ordinance. Sometimes there's an action against them to get them into compliance. There is many options for how to do it, but it does create an action on behalf of the city for how to address it.
And I might just add really briefly, we had an example in my neighborhood where there was a trailer that was blocking the triangle of view. And we actually have on the My Helena app, there is an option to report parking code violations. And so that is code enforcement then steps in and reviews the situation. Commissioner Shurtleff.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I got just one last question. To your point, City Attorney, I'm not sure who to address this to, whether it's you, Planner, or Director Konopke. Could we solve the issue with residential parking signs? Would that be helpful to only allow for parking by the resident? Would that help solve this issue?
Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioner Shurtleff, I think that's a whole separate action that I'm not sure you can take here pursuant to it. I know you cannot take that pursuant to a conditional use permit, but that is a whole separate action that I don't know what would be the process. Director Konopke would likely be able to speak to that.
Mayor Pro Tem Commission, typically the residential parking permits are brought by the residents of the area, and then that is brought forward for consideration. If that area included this duplex, then they would be able to purchase their permits as well. So it's public parking on the street. There are areas that we have issues with this type of situation. So
thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Seeing no further comments, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Commissioner Logan.
I would move to approve a resolution granting a conditional use permit to allow residents multiple dwelling units use in a R2 zoning district for the property legally described as lots 15 and 16 in block 97 of the Ming addition to the City of Helena, Lewis and Clark County, Montana.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final comments? Okay, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Shertliff,
Aye.
Commissioner Logan,
Aye.
Commissioner Reed,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem.
No.
The motion carries 3-1.
Okay. Move on to our final items. Consider a resolution approving the work plan and budget for the Business Improvement District and levying an assessment on all properties within the district for fiscal year 2025. Thank you, Director Danielson, for your patience.
Good evening again, Mayor Pro Tem and Commission. Tonight we have the resolution to adopt the BID work plan and assessment and their budget for the next fiscal year. The representative Megan Helton from the BID presented to the commission on May 29th their budget and work plan, and then on June 3rd, the commission passed a resolution of intention. Tonight, we're here to finalize this and I'm asking the commission or recommending the commission move to approve the work plan and budget for fiscal 23 for the Business Improvement District.
Great. Any questions or comments from the commission? Okay, is there any public comment on this item? Right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Commissioner Shertliff.
Thank you very much. I move to approve a resolution approving the work plan and budget for the Business Improvement District, levying an assessment on all properties within the district for fiscal year 2025.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final comments? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Shertliff,
Aye.
Commissioner Logan,
Aye.
Commissioner Reed,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
I'm out of order. Next on our agenda, consider a resolution approving the work plan and budget for the Tourism Business Improvement District and levying an assessment on all properties within the district for fiscal year 2025.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Commission. Like the Business Improvement District, tonight we're finalizing the Tourism Business Improvement District resolution, their budget and work plan for fiscal year 25. They presented their work plan and budget to the Commission on May 29th. On June 3rd, we had the resolution of intention, which the Commission passed, and tonight is the resolution finalization, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions or comments from the commission? Great. Any public comment? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Commissioner Reed.
I move to approve a resolution to approve the work plan and budget for the Helena Tourism Business Improvement District and to levy an assessment on all property within the district for fiscal year 2025.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final comments? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Shertliff,
Aye.
Commissioner Logan,
Aye.
Commissioner Reed,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Okay, and our final item for consideration, consider a resolution adopting the preliminary budget, budget authorities, and appropriations for fiscal year beginning July 1, 2024 and ending June 30th, 2025, and setting the salary for the municipal court judge. Director Danielson.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Commission. Tonight we have before you the preliminary budget for fiscal year 2025. This budget only varies slightly from the budget that was presented by the city manager on June 3rd. Just a couple of fixes to an item in the finance budget to adjust for our legacy Naviline system. But then I ended up reducing audit costs to try to accommodate that budget impact. And then there was a slight capital adjustment in the building fund for their copier. It came in a little bit higher by a couple $1,000s. And finally, we moved the expenses for location costs, utility location costs out of the building fund and over to the water and wastewater funds. But and then there was a adjustment in the liability insurance fund based on some recent communication that I got from MMIA that actually increased our liability and insurance costs from my original estimate. So I try to get close on that, but I never know until I actually get the invoice. So other than those small changes, nothing has changed from the presentation on June 3rd. I know that over the course of April and May, city staff and the city manager presented all their budgets to the commission. There was a lot of lengthy discussion and good presentations by all our department heads. I appreciate all their participation in the budget process and the engagement from not only the public, but the HCC. At this point, I don't have anything more to add. I know it's a big budget. It's over $100 million. It's in one of the more important documents that the commission gets to weigh in on and present. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Okay, questions or comments? Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Dean. Just a question. I know there were discussions about the now formed Parking Commission and some possible opportunities within the Transportation Department parking budget to provide some opportunity for them to make some recommendations and have some funding to use. Where did we land on that in this document? I'm not sure who is.
Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioner Reed, at this time, the parking budget does not have any other resources. The Director of Transportation Services did provide some estimates about what it would cost for the striping, and I believe it was around $30,000. So funding for that would have to come from either the general fund or general capital fund reserves.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So that we don't currently have anything in this budget that would be usable by the Parking Commission or by the city based on recommendations from them. Is that accurate?
Not at this time.
Thank you.
Although,
Yes, City Manager.
Mayor Pro Tem Commissioner, that can be changed with a budget amendment. And so if the commission is so inclined, we'll have good cost estimates based upon a proposed project, and we can come forward, engage the commission on a future budget amendment if that project is something that you want to pursue.
Okay. Any other comments? Before we open it up for public comment, I just want to take a minute, fitting at the end of a 3-hour meeting that Sheila Danielson is presenting, given the long many months that she's been putting this budget together. So I appreciate it. We appreciate all of, I think the full commission appreciates all the staff's work in getting to this place. It's a very big undertaking. I think given our current realities in our general fund and budgets being limited by half the rate of inflation averaged over 3 years, and increasing costs, we have done a fairly good job, at keeping our services at a quality level and also making some headway and progress on our capital improvement projects. We're still investing in things like sustainable energy and projects for the community. We included the sidewalk loan program again. And I will say once again, like I said at the last meeting, in August, our actuals will come in from the Department of Revenue, which will tell us exactly how much revenue we will have. And at that point, I'll be prepared to make an amendment to get our staff to a 4% cost of living adjustment if those actuals come in above, which frequently they do. We just budget very conservatively. I think that ensuring that we have high quality staff to keep city services running and meeting the public's needs is critically important, and I don't want us to fall behind after all the work we've done to make up the difference in the last 2 or 3 years. So really appreciate all the work, and we will, after this tonight, we'll have the final budget resolution in September when our actuals come in. So for the public, stay tuned as we move through the rest of this process. With
And
that,
Mayor Pro Tem, I just might also add to address Commissioner Reed. Once we get the estimates for that parking project, we can bring it to an administrative meeting for the commission to consider, and then have that information to, if the commission desires, adapt the final budget for that project.
great, thank you. Any public comment?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners. I'll be brief. I know you all read our recommendations. I just wanted to extend our gratitude to how accommodating the city was to our process through these budget recommendations. And as we move into the final budget, we will continue to follow what goes on, and it's possible that we could bring some more recommendations forward. That said, if there's anything that you would specifically like our input on, please let us know and we'll get that recommendation to you. So unless there's any direct questions about our recommendations, I'll yield.
Thank you, Mr. Kuiper.
Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other public comment, is there any additional comments from the commission? Great, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Commissioner Reed.
I move to adopt a resolution adopting, sorry, I don't have the right language, adopting the preliminary budget authorities and appropriations for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2024 and ending June 30, 2025, and setting the salary for the municipal court judge.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final comments? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Shertliff.
Aye.
Commissioner Logan.
Aye.
Commissioner Reed.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean.
Aye.
The motion carries 4-0.
Okay, I will open it up. Is there any other public comment on any item not discussed on this agenda? Okay, seeing none. Thanks so much, everybody. This meeting is adjourned.